Today on Wisdom Journey, we're diving into a conversation that challenges how we think about branding, design, and inclusion. My guest is Maxwell Ivey, widely known as the Blind Blogger, a serial entrepreneur, author, speaker, and accessibility consultant who has spent over 15 years helping brands understand that accessibility isn't just about compliance, it's about communication, collaboration, and connection. Max lost his sight early in life, yet built multiple businesses online, from selling amusement park rides to hosting award-winning podcasts. Through his platform, The Accessibility Advantage, he teaches business owners how inclusive design, from color contrast and alt text to accessible web forms and inclusive language, can make brands more human, more profitable, and more welcoming. In today's episode, we'll unpack how accessibility shapes perception, builds trust, and creates opportunities that many brands still overlook. Welcome to the podcast, Maxwell.
Well, it's good to be here, Wisdom. It's good to sit and talk with you again. And please just call me Max. So I appreciate that we are going to focus on this from the point of view of building, expanding, and maintaining and even protecting a brand. Because as you mentioned in my intro, too often it's a checkbox of compliance. It's let's avoid getting in trouble through regulatory penalties, lawsuits, negative publicity campaigns. And in fact, here lately, there's a lot of conversation going on around the European Accessibility Act, which a lot of people have high hopes will influence the level of accessibility in Europe and as a result in other countries where businesses do business globally. But I've seen all sorts of compliance regulations come, and we've actually had laws in the United States on this for over a decade.
Yeah.
But here we are in 2025, less than 5% of the internet is completely accessible. And so I'm one of these people I have to ask myself, is the problem not solvable? Do we not have the best tools yet? Or are we just approaching it the wrong way? And,
Yeah.
over the years, I didn't have the advantage of having the clout of a major nonprofit or government agency or even a major corporation. Basically, when I did things online for my own businesses, I had to educate business owners and explain and advocate and persuade them to either improve accessibility or to help me navigate their website in some other way. So
Yeah.
I got to this point where, I'm not one of those people who had the advantage of being able to hit people with a stick upside the head. I had to talk to them and encourage them to do it the right way. And the most important thing I've learned in now almost 20 years, because I started in 2007, is that business owners don't generally change things long term or for the better unless it's in their self interest. So the more
Yeah.
we can show them the financial, real world benefit to being accessible and inclusive, the more we do that, the better chance we have to get them on board. And I'll give you a perfect example. Nowadays, because we have all these new AI bots crawling the internet, accessibility is even more important to your website standing out in search engines organically. But for the longest time, I did something similar to that. I found out that Google indexed the alt text for the descriptions of images.
Yeah.
Those are text strings that run in the background that people using screen readers have access to. So like for somebody like me that's totally blind, I use a text-to-speech program called VoiceOver. I also use one called JAWS for Windows on my Microsoft computer. They hide in the background, but they're very important to people who don't have enough vision to use a regular screen or even a magnified screen. So, but I found out Google was indexing those descriptions. I used to talk to people until I was blue in the face about they needed to add the alt text because because it was the right thing to do, because if they didn't do it, I couldn't see their images, and none of
Yeah.
that worked. But as soon as I started telling them, hey, you're missing a chance to influence Google, Siri, and Bing, it was like, okay, how do I do it? And can you tell me what the best practices are? So, and not every business was immediately embracing it, but it's one of those things that has come along over time. I would say nowadays, most business owners and almost all people in the business of developing websites know about alt text and they understand their index. but most people don't understand about all the other stuff that the search engines and the artificial intelligence bots are doing behind the scenes, that where you are missing an opportunity to influence how they see you and who they will bring to your online door by not being accessible. So yeah, branding is important. I've known from many years of experience that we have to show business owners what's in it for them. That until we do that, yeah, they may, in some cases, they may worry about compliance and they may make minimum efforts to be accessible. But that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help me. It also doesn't help you, because another thing that I've learned over time is that whenever we improve accessibility on a website, an app, or some other piece of online content, we improve the user experience of every person who doesn't have a disability. So I think that's a
Yeah.
good place for us to start as far as talking about using accessibility as part of building and maintaining your brand.
Yeah. Well, when most people hear accessibility, they think of legal checklists, compliance, but you describe it as communication and collaboration. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is that there are places you can go online like the w3.org where you can find out what the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, you can find out what they say the minimum standards are. But you can have an accessible website that is still not enjoyable by people using adaptive technology because you don't understand how somebody with a screen reader or a screen magnifier or a mechanical switch, you don't understand how those people navigate the internet. And there's
Authentication. Application.
yeah,
You
sorry
are
about
currently
that.
on a window.
Sometimes it talks when it ain't
Riverside
its
FM
turn.
Studio. Character palette. Close button.
So you may not understand how we actually navigate the internet. I mean, even now, most people don't understand that many people like me don't have access to the mouse when it comes to navigating a website.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand that in order to add a screen reader or screen magnifier, they have to build in a way for us to navigate using that technology. And often, in order to do that, they have to turn off certain features in a operating system, so a lot of people don't understand about us not having a mouse. They don't understand about how much more time it takes us to navigate a website or the screen of an app. So they undervalue simplicity and minimalism. There are so many webmasters who think, hey, we got to put everything we got on the front page because they might miss it otherwise. But
Yeah.
but that just makes it harder for people with disabilities. It also makes it harder for people using mobile devices to navigate. So there are certain things, and also one of the things I find really helps with business owners is when you talk to them and you've gotten to the point where they're ready to embrace accessibility, and you don't go, okay, this is how you are going to achieve accessibility. I mean, too often we come to business owners and we think and I don't include myself in this category, but many people in the disability community think that they have the only solution to accessibility. And the truth of the matter is that the business owner has lots of experience in their business. The coders, designers, graphic artists, they have lots of experience at what they are doing. In order to get an accessible product that is also still enjoyable, it takes a process where you work together, where you express your individual challenges, you share the ways that you navigate the world. You have a conversation so that both sides understand what you're trying to accomplish and the available ways of getting there. And quite often, the website owner may have a better idea than you had, or they may have a way to get to that solution in a different manner than you would have gotten to it because maybe you don't know coding. I'm not a coder. I had to teach
Yeah.
myself to code HTML in the early days, but I'm not going to call myself a coder. I know nothing about Java or PHP or Ruby or any of the more advanced stuff. I was able to make a website run because I had no choice. So I
Yeah.
did that. But I know enough to know that when it comes to coding for screen readers, that there are a lot of challenges, and that's just screen readers. There's Windows and Microsoft. There's Android and iOS. There are varying levels of vision loss and varying levels of technical proficiency with the adaptive equipment that is out there. So I understand it's challenging. I also understand being able to code something so that it works with those things and making it accessible is very difficult and takes continual effort. And I feel like my empathy for business owners that I gained from having to do this stuff myself for years puts me in a unique position compared to many other people advocating for accessibility. So yeah, I know enough to know how hard it is, and that empathy allows me to have an easier path to having conversations. It also means I know some of the big words that they use. I know some of the things they're talking about. I may have to Google them and find it, or I may have to ask the person on the other side of the Zoom, hey, could you help me understand more? Like with ARIA, ARIA is a language that's used to communicate between developers' language and screen readers. So it's something I understand what it is. I understand how it works. I understand why it is that it's different between Safari and Chrome and Edge and the various. But as far as being able to code something and have it run there, I couldn't do it. And the majority of people in the accessibility field are just like me. Very few people know accessibility, no coding.
Wow.
Very few coders really know accessibility, and by having a conversation, by collaborating, we can get to better solutions more quickly, more easily, and with less confrontation. And that's one of the things I'm all about. I do not want to get where I want to go by threatening people. I do not want to have confrontations, arguments, disputes. I don't like to start stuff on social media. I don't like to call people out on LinkedIn. I think since we've known each other, I have made more posts to LinkedIn where I have complained about something because I couldn't get the result I wanted communicating to them directly, privately. But even then, I think you would agree that my posts are always mostly positive, that my goal is not to incite other people to rain down hate on a particular business. It's mainly just to get their attention and let them know, hey, you're missing an opportunity here. There's no other option in this area that's accessible. And if you were the one to be accessible, not only would you have a huge potential audience and people like me, but also you would make the lives of other people who don't have disabilities either. Me and you were talking about this with Riverside before we went live today. I don't have any personal problems with Riverside. I don't think that they built a platform to make my life hard. But I don't use Riverside because there are a lot of unlabeled buttons on it. There are a lot of features that I frankly just cannot use, and even if I could use them, they would be more strength than I need for my podcast because I tend to keep my podcast very simple. I'm currently recording on StreamYard. I'm not really happy with StreamYard either. There are aspects of it that are not accessible. But I don't, but I'm not trying to put them out of business. I'm not trying to cause social media backlash. When I do post, it's usually because somebody is not answering their email inbox or they're not replying to their direct messages. And it's like, hey, you're missing an opportunity here. I mean, right now, there is no truly accessible live streaming option. There is no truly accessible mass email program. There is no truly accessible calendar scheduling option. Calendly is pretty good, but it's over time, it's sliding back on the back end and causing problems for people like me trying to update my existing stuff on Calendly.
Now that you mention Calendly, I'm curious. When I reached out to you, I sent you the link. I'm curious, what was the experience like trying to book a meeting for this podcast?
Right. Well, see, that's the thing. Calendly is like a lot of companies. It is great on the front end. If I go to your scheduler to book an appointment, it is awesome. I mean, not only is the process simple, but it does something most people in online business still don't understand. You know what it does? It only shows me the dates that you're available. You know how many hotel booking sites, you know how many spa booking sites, you know how many other booking sites will show you dates that they don't have a time available on, or will show you dates they don't have anything. I mean, and this is not something that just helps people that are disabled. It helps everybody. I mean, it just makes the process. I mean, why display your entire calendar if you have no availability, or if you only have one weekend available?
Use? Really?
So that's one thing Calendly does great. It only shows me the dates that you have available. If you don't have any dates available, it prompts me to go to the next month. On the front end, it is great. It's the back end where it has trouble. And a lot of companies are that way. And that's because they don't they don't expect that there are a lot of people out here with disabilities trying to run businesses or trying to run passion projects like a podcast or a blog. They still don't understand just how many entrepreneurs there are who have disabilities or who are living with the challenges of a disability, even if they don't consider themselves disabled. And so quite often front ends work great, back ends not so much. For example, right now, most of the websites being developed through WordPress are fairly accessible. There are some issues. The more people use third-party plugins on WordPress or Shopify or any other major content management system platform, the more trouble they run into.
Yeah.
WordPress on the back end has gotten really challenging over time. Ever since the introduction of Gutenberg in 2018, it has gotten more and more challenging for people with disabilities to navigate the back end and build or maintain or expand their own websites and blogs, to the point that many people with disabilities are now exploring other options like Drupal, like Umbraco, like Wix. Heck, there are even some trying GoDaddy. And GoDaddy, I wouldn't. I mean, they still have problems with people creating inaccessible websites on GoDaddy. But they're, because at one time, and WordPress still has a big investment in accessibility. If you go to a WordCamp event, you are going to see talks on building accessible websites. If they have a real investment. They try hard, but as they continue to grow the platform and continue to offer more and more options, to make it easier on the general population, they make it harder on people with disabilities. So that also speaks to accessibility as a brand, because one thing that more people need to understand about accessibility is it is fragile. It isn't one of those things you build and you're done and you don't have to worry about it again. You actually have to worry about accessibility every time you update your website, because every time you make changes to your website, you could harm the accessibility that you've already built. But to your primary question, Calendly, very good on the front end, not so good on the back end, but they're not unusual in that respect.
Yeah, I think most companies and businesses, they build for the majority, and they ignore the minority. And this is just beyond more, not just for accessibility. I'm talking about some businesses, right? If they realize that maybe 5% of their customers
application window
have
voiceover off.
Have certain needs, they're like, oh well, what does 90% of our customers need? And they focus on that, and they ignore the 5-10%. And in terms of features and otherwise, and the same approach they use when it also comes to accessibility.
Right. Which is why when I talk about accessibility, I talk about accessibility benefiting everyone, and that's the thing. That's one of those areas our community just stinks at. We're just horrible at it. And there are so many great examples of how improving accessibility improves user experience. For example, pretty much it's becoming fairly common now to see the word dark mode on websites, and that doesn't mean dark web, y'all.
Hey, quick break. Before we continue, I'd love for you to join the Wisdom Journey newsletter. Every week, I share exclusive insights, tools, and behind-the-scenes updates to help you stay ahead in your own journey of building an online business. It's simple, practical, and built to help you grow. Sign up today for free at the link in the description. Now, let's get back to the episode.
What it means is if you press that button, it inverts the colors on your screen from light on dark, from dark text on a light background to light text on a dark background. And that was originally created for people who are losing their vision, because it was discovered that inverting the text colors would allow for less eye strain. It would allow somebody having to view text in much bigger, I'm talking like 10, 12, 14 times normal text size. It would allow them to navigate, to be able to track the text more clearly, because obviously they can't see the entire screen of text on the screen at the same time. And so this was something that was developed even like when I was in junior high school, because back then we had a device that was a closed circuit TV set where you would put the book on a table and there would be a camera, and it would enlarge the text and put it on a screen. And we had the option of inverting colors all the way back like in late 70s. But what people discovered is that when you invert the text on a mobile device, it makes it much easier to use in really high or low light. So if you want people to navigate you want people to scroll your website and buy stuff while they're hanging out at the beach or the pool, you need dark mode. And it's one of my favorite examples of how improving accessibility has improved the user experience for everybody else. And the more enjoyable it is to stay on your website, the longer they'll be there, the more likely they are to buy something they didn't expect to buy when they first got there.
Yeah.
So time on site is something we're all trying to get. Organic search traffic is something we're all trying to get. And these are things you can accomplish by implementing some basic accessibility changes. So, but I agree with you. We have to make accessibility understood that it benefits everyone. That we're not just asking to do this for the blind, the deaf, the physically disabled, the neuroatypical. We're not just asking for those people. What we're asking is that we're asking you to do it for those people, but we want you to understand there are going to be real, tangible, profitable benefits to everybody that doesn't have a disability by doing so. And then, of course, as a blind person, as a disabled person, there are so few businesses making the effort at accessibility that we support those companies. We like to help them succeed. We stick with them through good times and bad times. Sometimes we'll even overpay for their products because they're delivered in an accessible manner or they're the only product available. We will advocate for them, promote them to our friends, families, coworkers, social media followings. There are many people with disabilities who have millions of followers on social media, who have huge audiences, or who have extremely loyal followings. The national and international brands have still not caught up to them, reached out to them, made them a part of their advertising strategy, even though it's a huge resource that they could be tapping into, but for some reason they choose not to. There are many people out there in the world who don't have a disability, but they know somebody who has one. Or they're just, we have a lot of young people now who they see social consciousness as part of their identity. And so they will support companies that invest in accessibility. The same thing applies to companies that invest in inclusion in the form of diversity, equity, and inclusion. They will invest in those companies and support those companies because it fits with the way they see the world. And there are more and more of those people every day. So there are so many reasons how this applies to building your brand. Like I said, we're a very loyal consumer base, and that applies to products and services as well as to content like podcasts, YouTube channels, television shows, etc. And any business student and any business teacher and any business owner, they'll all tell you that it is much more profitable to keep customers than it is to constantly chase new customers. So accessibility is a way you can improve and continue to grow a loyal audience that will stick with you through good times and bad, that will promote you. What's not to like there as far as, if you're building a brand?
Yeah, one of the things that is the news every day is AI. What role do you see AI playing in accessibility over the next years, for better or worse?
Right. I think we have to look at AI in two different ways when it comes to accessibility.
Okay.
First, let's look at it as far as the value of accessibility to the brand owner or to somebody starting a business. AI is even more dependent on accessibility best practices than the search engines are in determining who a particular customer will be directed to. The more you can tell AI about who you are, what your business is, what it does, why people should care about your product services, the more information you can give the bots, the more likely they are to bring customers to your door, and more importantly, to bring the ideal customers to your online door. We have an opportunity to educate the bots. Right now, a lot of the bots are still relatively new and the internet is vast. So we still have the opportunity to tell them who we are before they go out and find out who we are on their own. And we do that by the way we build our websites. So the more accessible content you have, the easier it is for them to see your website and to see your business. So things like proper heading structure, things like choosing proper fonts that display well in screen magnification, clearly labeled buttons and links so that there's a navigation path so they can easily tell where that button or link is going to go to. Buttons that can be clicked without the need of a mouse. Videos, images, audios that have closed captions, transcripts, or audio descriptions. Audio descriptions is still kind of off in the future because it's one of those things that not very many companies will do. It's not considered part of the WCAG guidelines, but it's something that they can see if you have it available on your website. So these are things that you get to tell the bots and the search engines who you are, and you actually get to have a conversation with them by the way you create your site, how you format your information. And accessibility is a great way to educate the bots. And the bots are not all that smart. They're huge. They're incredibly fast. They learn at an amazing rate, but they're not what we would call intelligent, in my opinion, when it comes to discerning the importance of websites based on quality on the internet. They will eventually get there, but it will continue to take time. AI, as far as in my opinion, on that side is great because it just reinforces my message about how improving accessibility improves organic search traffic and eventually can improve ideal organic search traffic by leveraging the bots through accessibility. Now, on the downside, though, we have, and well, wait a minute, I think maybe there's three parts. The second part to this is there are some things that AI are going to allow website builders to do that are in accessibility that they may not have done before without the help of AI. For example, I've recently interviewed Martijn van der Spek on my podcast, The Accessibility Advantage. He's the creator of a program or app called Pickybot, Piccybot, and it uses the large learning models to create alt text descriptions of images or to create audio descriptions of short videos. And so this is a thing where the user and eventually some of the website builders will be able to have this code that will create the alternative text descriptions so that somebody doesn't have to go in and create them one image at a time by themselves. There are possibilities where AI could be used to describe color options for visually impaired users, because one of the many challenges I've run into that most people don't think about is a lot of times when it comes to selecting a color for something, those color names don't match up with the crayons I had in my coloring box when I was still young enough to see colors. So, I recently ran across a couple of AI things that I thought were really cool that I feel like are small improvements. And I really wish that they were approaching this in small pieces as opposed to just trying to do, huge accessibility through audio prompts. But I was recently shopping for some clothes on JCPenney, and when I put an item in my cart, it said, "This item generally runs small. You should select the next size up."
Wow.
Now, I wouldn't have known that without doing research. And when you're on a huge site like JCPenney's or any other major store company, there's a lot of information to go through. So that basically saved me a purchasing decision mistake that would have probably resulted in my having to do a return, which is a pain in the butt if you're blind. So that helped. And then when I went to check out, I didn't have to install an app. I didn't have to go looking for coupons, it said, these are the available coupons based on what you have in your cart. Would you like to use them? And I said, heck yeah, I'd like to use them. And and then just one more recent example. When I was the last time I flew out of Houston to go speak, I was speaking at the Beer City Code Fest in Grand Rapids on accessibility as a process and why people should care about accessibility. When I went to schedule my ride on Uber, I put in that I was going to the airport.
Yeah.
And then Uber comes back and says, what airline are you flying? And I said, I'm flying United. I click United. It says, what time of day are you leaving? And I said, morning. And then it starts pulling up the available flights that are leaving United Airlines that morning.
Yeah.
And it says, it gave me the option of selecting my flight. But now that wasn't the cool part. Here's the really cool part. Once I selected my flight, it said, would you like to schedule your pickup time or would you like us to schedule an arrival time? I said, I don't trust. I said, part of me doesn't trust this thing. I don't expect it to actually work, but what the heck, So I said, okay, I'll let you schedule my arrival time. The darn thing went in. It according to what I was told when I looked this up, is it goes in and it can check the approximate time it should take to get to the airport from my house during a certain time of day. And then it comes back and it says, you're supposed to be there 2 hours early. This is the approximate time. This is when we would like to pick you up. Is that okay? And I clicked yes. And they showed up at the proper time. They got me there at the proper time. I was actually early, even by the 2-hour standard. But this is, just little stuff that made my day so much easier than it could have been by having these small improvements based on AI built into bigger applications. And I feel like that's where now the third part that I mentioned, and like I say, I'm still new to explaining how AI affects accessibility. So we have two parts so far. We have it means that accessibility is more important to brand creation. We have that AI can benefit people with disabilities, make our lives easier when we're navigating online. And I didn't even mention filling out forms and entering repetitive information. But the third part, and this is the part that has people nervous, is that AI may eliminate jobs that are currently being done by people with disabilities. That there's still like 70% unemployment in the disability community, and that's people with physical disabilities like myself. If you go into the intellectual and developmental disability categories, it's more like 85% unemployment. And there hasn't been much real change in the unemployment numbers. So anything, so that the general population around the world is nervous about what AI means for the future of work. So you can, I'm sure, imagine that just makes people like me even more concerned about the future of work for people with disabilities. And AI does have some, there are some possible problems from AI. There is the potential that people will be able to develop websites that are accessible using AI prompts. Now, I don't know if that's something that's going to happen today or next year or 10 years from now. The more I learn about AI, the more I learn that it's not a real high quality way to do things. It makes a lot of mistakes. And I'm even hearing about something called AI hallucinations, where sometimes AI sees stuff or comes to conclusions that aren't there. But there are some things where AI is at least being tested out. Like I mentioned audio descriptions earlier. An audio description is where a narrator, either using a script or just doing it from their own imagination, will describe the action on screen or on stage or on the field whenever people aren't talking. And it's something that we really need to have. It's something that a lot of governments have started to mandate. But as there's more demand for it, there's also a demand to make it cheaper. So we've already had offshoring of audio descriptions, having the work done in Singapore and Thailand and Taiwan and other places. But AI does have the ability, or will have the ability, to do audio descriptions. It already does closed captions. I mean, I don't know about Riverside, but I know that Google Meet and Zoom have a thing built in where it can do automated transcriptions or closed captioning. And of course, it makes errors, which is why we always tell people don't publish your videos without editing your closed captions, and don't publish your transcripts without editing them. But it can do them. And these are areas where there have been people with disabilities who have been able to make a living in the area of accessibility, because we know what we need. We know what accessibility looks like. There are a lot of us that either make our livings there or hope to make our livings there. And there is the potential that AI could put some downward pressure on the number of employees that are needed, the number of contractors like myself that are needed, or the pay that people are willing to expend for experts in those services. So far, I haven't seen a big influx of AI in that area, but I know that it's something that is possible. And I know there are people in the AI field who talk about how not only is it possible, but it's very easy to tell these language models how to build a website that's accessible. I would actually love to run across somebody who believes that, who would like me to test some of their websites. So we have three parts of AI. We have the fact that it makes accessibility more valuable. We have the fact that it can improve the lives of people with disabilities online. But we also have that third part where it could endanger the future of work among people with disabilities. Now, maybe it will create some new jobs. That's always a possibility. However, something I'm concerned about with AI in general is the lack of people with disabilities at the table at these companies building the learning models. And so I wonder about the inclusion of people with disabilities in the education process, those people becoming the future AI experts, and the people at companies and enterprise level organizations building or trying to ride herd on these AI engines. So we'll see. That's actually a good thing. I know a few people that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm hearing you. Okay, well, good. That's one of the advantages of Riverside, the local recording. So you've always got it. Yeah. Right. And I appreciate, you just did me a big favor, because, talking with you about AI has really helped me clarify this. I think I've got to talk now. I think, and the thing is like, okay, I mentioned a few months ago, I went and spoke at Beer City Code in Grand Rapids. Well, I spoke on accessibility, and they wanted accessibility. But I was in a small room on the second floor. All the big rooms were given over to people talking about something. If I could find somebody who does AI, who I can, find an AI built website or two that I can use as a case study, as an example of either how AI gets it right or gets it wrong, and how they, maybe they need more accessibility experts in AI. I think that would totally round it out. I just need to find somebody who, like I say, builds websites with AI, who we can then go, all right, let's see how well your AI sites are holding up when it comes to accessibility. And then, okay, all righty. Well, the promoter says he wants to cancel 'cause there ain't enough tickets sold. The air conditioner on the bus broke, and I can't shake this cold. The singer lost the bullet. The singer's losing his mind. Yeah, right. I appreciate that. They can go to theaccessibilityadvantage.com or send an email to Maxwell at theaccessibilityadvantage.com. They can also find out much more about me on my LinkedIn profile, which is Maxwell Ivey. IV as in Victor EY. But I do hope they'll reach out to me, that we can discuss accessibility, help them see how it will benefit their business to be more inclusive of people with disabilities, because it will allow them to improve the user experience of everyone, including those who don't have a disability. It will raise their search engine and AI bot profile, and it will open up a huge market of highly loyal consumers who will advocate for their businesses going forward. Again, theaccessibilityadvantage.com. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Wisdom. Goodbye.
Thanks for tuning into Wisdom Journey. I hope today's episode gave you practical steps and fresh ideas to keep moving forward. If you found value, be sure to subscribe and share this podcast with a fellow creator or entrepreneur who'd love to learn too. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter and the link in the description. for more resources, experiments, and lessons straight to your inbox. Until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep walking your own wisdom journey. Yeah.